Greetings to us. Welcome to Deck Report, Week 4, Season 2, Part 2. I already did Part 1, which was the Centurion deck that I played on Saturday's locals. This is the deck I took to Thursday's locals. This is the updated version of the Labrynth Unchained deck. There are a few changes I still want to make to this deck, but this is the exact same list I played on Thursday. I finished 4-1. It was 24 players, so 5 rounds of Swiss. I ended up losing to Tenpai Dragons at the very end. Well, actually, it was on the previous to last round, but they ended up undefeated, which made me finish second place. I lost game three because they had Quackimero Drago on board, and I had a way to break their entire board, but the only way I could do that was using transaction rollback, and I lost team time because of it, which is pretty unfortunate. Usually, you don't go into time against Tenpai Dragons, and you'll see why in a little bit. However, it was still very impressive. I still think this is a very very concrete list. I I'm not kidding when I say this is like one of my more favorable decks to play in this format. I think Labyrinth are in a way better position than people are giving it credit for, and I think Unchained is also in a really good spot right now, despite the one Charvara. The Tenpai matchup is really really strong for this deck. Like, it's very laughably easy how the matchup is, even without stuff like the barrier. Uh, Against the other decks, it like at this juncture, the most toughest deck for this that I've been facing is Voiceless Voice and Melodious. Those are like the two like really strong ones that this deck is struggling a bit against. That's why you see Dark Ruler in the side deck. Dark Ruler is mainly for those two decks, and maybe other decks or matchups that just are like a little bit strong against you, with like floodgate monsters in particular, or stuff like that. Uh, in the main deck is pretty much almost the same monster ratios. I dropped Squirmer to 1 because with Nightmare Throne is he's just very searchable, and I don't want to open a hand of multiple Squirmers or multiple Thrones, or a combination of multiple Thrones and Squirmers. I think that's going to make it very awkward. Uh, I just kept it at 2 targets for Throne. In the future, I do want to play Backjack. That would be like my third Throne target. One suggestion that was given to me was to play Battle Fader as another option against like the Tenpai matchup, for example. But I don't think that's necessary. As for the lab ratios, I think this is very standard. I dropped the furnishers to 2 each. So the logic behind dropping the furnishers is you're replacing them with prosperity, and prosperity pretty much just gets you to almost anything in the deck. So it's just to make sure that you don't break, because this deck does have a fair amount of bricks with mainly the Unchained cards if you don't get to your Unchained engine in rotation. Outside of that, pretty much everything is like workable. You do have a couple of one-ups, like all the Unchained monsters are one-ups, if you noticed. And there are one-of Labyrinth monsters you don't want to open with, like for example, Lovely Labyrinth and Lady Labyrinth. But they all mesh well with each other. Like, it's so incredibly like laughable how consistent this deck is, even with their random cards. Uh, I did not draw Prosperity any single game, at least on locals. I don't think this card is needed in this deck. This can be something else. I can Well, you'll see a replay where I am playing something else besides the pot. I upped the Unchained card ratios. I might drop escape down to one. I was suggested to drop this to one, but I keep multiple chambers because I just wanted more cards to pop with Trivara or Aruha. Uh, Unchained Lord Oyama is like one of the key plays in this deck, and if you open like any Unchained trap and a way to get to Yama, and Yama resolves, is just very explosive. You just vomit your board full of monsters, which is something very strong for a Labrynth deck. You usually don't see a Labrynth deck like vomit a lot of monsters unless you're a mid to late game and you're resolving all your like Labrynth cards properly. But at that point, you're already winning the game. So like, there's no real reason to just like combo extend with all those monsters, where you're just already like controlling your opponent's resources. But this build is very different. Mainly like the labyrinth cards makes it so you are very resilient to like your opponent's interactions. It also is very strong going first. The Unchained cards are ideally even stronger going second than they are going first. So one of the biggest weaknesses that Labyrinth actually has are mitigated by the existence of the Unchained cards. The fiend synergy between both archetypes is also very important. But yeah, the other thing I did is I maining two barriers. I think two barriers is enough. I don't want to play three, especially since I don't know every matchup. It would be very unfortunate if you just like get paired against Floowandereeze and you just open this. So ideally, you just don't want to play that many. Worst case scenario is just fodder for the finishers, fodder for the Chiyama, uh, fodder for like Yama effect in the extra deck. So yeah, that's it for those. Uh, we're still on rollback. We're still on three cannon. I think that's it for the main deck. The side deck is where it gets a lot more interesting. I guess I'll talk about the six floodgates first. Against certain matchups, you might want these particular floodgates. Uh, Against Tenpai Dragons specifically, or maybe even the mirror match, quote unquote, because there's nobody playing like this hybrid. There can be only one. It can be really strong, especially because your monsters trade better uh, in one for ones than your opponent's Tenpai monsters. The only Tenpai monster that trades well under this card is Fadra, and you have enough ways to get rid of Fadra. The other thing that this card does in this deck is that it secures you from being OTK'd. It secures you from a lot of people like comboing and having their ceiling higher than yours. It puts them on a very awkward spot, and realistically, worst case scenario, you can pop this with Chiama, you can pop it with like Yama's effect. Like, there are enough ways to like play around this card. But yeah, um, rivalry, no brainer, anti spell. This just got confirmed reprint in rarity collection. Now we know why this card's limited. Well, at least that's my theory behind it. Skill drain. I really wanted to main this card, especially since if you noticed, I'm not playing Imperm, neither in the main nor in the side deck. I really wanted to main deck this card, but I didn't have the room, and I didn't want to be in a very awkward position whenever I go second and have this card, because most decks nowadays are building like not that strong interactions against you. There are interactions that are passable, and skill drain could punish some of those passable boards. However, there is an overlap with this, and it doesn't hurt Snake Eyes or Tenpai that much. It does hurt Tenpai a fair amount, but they can still play around it. So let's talk about Dark Ruler. Like I mentioned earlier, Voiceless Voice is your worst matchup, so this card is really really good against them. Uh, you're probably thinking why that over something like Evenly Matched. The thing is that the Unchained cards break boards super easily. They really just try to like pick apart your opponent's board and their resources, like with little to no worries. However, Voiceless do have negation and they do have protection, so that's something to be worried of. And Dark Ruler is a card that made sure that that is a thing. So as for the Labyrinth ratios, I already explained them. I think we're good when it comes to the main deck. Like I said, there are a few things I would like to change. Whenever we go second against back row, you just put Feather Duster. That's like a no-brainer. This is like one of the very few decks in the game where it can play both rivalry and there can be only one, because usually one conflicts with the other too much. But yeah, extra deck, pretty much the same as last time. I'm still on two Typhon. I'm still on three Yama. Uh, Muckraker does come up sometimes, at least more than once. So once this is out of its link phase, because it said it cannot be the turn is link summon, you cannot use its linking attribution. This essentially just becomes like a card that really helps you in the grain game. Um, you'll see that later in the replay. This is not mandatory. However, I just felt like playing double Typhon. I think Typhon is just that good of a card. And it's a Fiend monster, so it does synergize with Yama. It does synergize with a lot of the deck. So that's a very important detail to mention. So things that I will cut, things that are different. I have not summoned this to this day. This is actually fine, but I don't think this is needed. It might come up in the future. Anima is only here because of like if you specifically opened Grave Squirmer plus Clue Clock. Uh, Outside of that, it's not really that needed, like at all. It does threaten SP Little Knight, which is something to consider. However, uh, the restriction to fiends, like with the rest of the deck, uh, just makes it very awkward whenever you want to summon this card or play into this card. Uh, Abomination does a lot more this format than it has done on past formats, at least from my understanding me playing the deck. And that's really, really strong because you just pick apart your opponent's board one by one. Um, I think we're good. Um, Now let me show you a replay. So I kind of always want to give proof of concept when it comes to like showcasing decks and strategies. This is a way to show you that this deck doesn't really have a hard time against Tenpai Dragons. So the Tenpai player made me go first, and we just send for Rhino, Rhino for Charvara. Um, we summon Aruha. Trap activates the Ash Blossom. We summon Lady. We make Yama. That gets Veilered. We set and pass. They go Sengen Summoning. Sengen Summoning for Pydra. They summon Fadra. Pydra has. Yep, that resolves. Sangen Kaimen summons the Tenpai Dragon. And this is something my opponent opts to do. So I'm gonna pause it right here real quick. Sometimes Tenpai players just hold the Sangen Kaimen and they just wait until the battle phase. At least almost every Tenpai player I've faced has done that. This one opted to go for the Superconductor play. They're relying on Field Spell to protect their level 10 Synchro, meaning that they can just go to battle phase and just get uh, pop the Yama by battle without worried about getting interrupted. So they summon Bident into Shundra, and so we make a misplay here. So we summon Welcome and then we activate Big Welcome. However, it should have been Big Welcome first and then Welcome Labrynth. And the reason for that is because I forgot that Lady Labrynth was in my graveyard. So you just go Big Welcome, bring back Lady, bounce back Lady, Lady's effects resummon herself, and then you flip Welcome Labrynth, you chain the Lady Labrynth, you just set any trap you want, and then Welcome Labrynth will summon Ariana. Ariana will grab you Cool Clock, and then you can just activate the trap on the same turn. I did not do that because we don't have the legal target in our deck. Okay, my bad. We don't do that because I did the sequence wrong, so we just gonna end up losing this duel. Yeah, that's the end of the game because I already know that I cannot play around like the superconductor, the super senpai. Um, so now we open a bomb, and so a bomb plus any monster equals a combo that I've been liking a lot. So yeah, you see how we popped the Welcome Labrynth, and this is what I meant by opening awkward one-offs. Like we have the one of Chavara, which was searchable by the person, so you can make that argument. But we had the one of Chavara, the one of Welcome Labrynth, and the one of Lady Labrynth. And despite them being very specific cards, you still have lines and combos that just plays with them. So we do Yama, you do Chavara, we add Aruha, and we pop the chamber. So yeah, as you can see, we grabbed Aruha with Yama. The Aruha triggers. Then we pop the trap. We set Sayama. Then we do that. We summon Shiyama. We can do that. Shiyama special. And they drop the rock on us. And this is where like the labyrinth stuff comes in. It's like if we open the labyrinth cards or we open enough of them, you just don't care that you got like Nibiru. Typical Unchained, Nibiru is an issue. So in this game, I flipped the Karma Cannon. There's no reason not to flip it. He already exhausted his normal summon, and he already activated Sangen Kaimen. So there are no interactions in the battle phase, to my knowledge, that could hinder us. But we do Sangen Summoning, we return the Fadra, we switch that, and yeah, so I opted for Chamber back onto Rage. This was another misplay. I should have Rage, used this effect, link away with the token, make Anguish, and then just use the Chamber on something else. Like, for example, Sarama, or Aruha, or like Shavara. Uh, so I opted for this line, and this line is a lot less safer because I'm relying on top deck. I summoned Lady, and I drew into Ariana, which was pretty much like the best top deck you can think of. They drop list that, that's fine. Now we pop Sharvara, we make Yama, Sharvara sets, and then we grab Aruha, and then Aruha effect, and pop, and then that sets. They make Anguish, we activate Shiyama, we activate Yama, and that's game. Now we go to game three. Our opponents made us go first again, and I want you guys to take a careful look. He has Imperm, he has Phantasme, and he also has an Ash Blossom, but you'll see that later. So we Sesorama, pop it, we go Yama, yep, they Imperm, they Phantasme, they summon Lady because they activated Imperm this turn. We do Shiyama. We do Muck. We do Rhino. Yep. Okay. So if you're confused what happened here, uh, we had Rhino in our hand, so we needed a way to pitch the Rhino to graveyard. Option one was, um, yep. So I was looking for different options, and like Muckraker was pretty much like the best one. And for those who see this play, like we played through Ash, we played through Imperm, we played through Phantasme, and we're resolving Big Welcome Labyrinth. Uh, and like in our first turn, and this just like our the current build did not play Rhino, but this one does. So Rhino kind of helps with that. But yeah, this is just very very strong against Tenpai. Like now they hand trapped me twice, well thrice technically. They don't have more answers. We're just going to like go lovely effect, bounce the Sorama for next turn, pop one card, then reset big welcome next turn. Do that again, and if they try to interact with you in other ways, you can make uh, Yama rage again. Uh, and have another interaction against your opponent as well. But yeah, uh, this has been the like Labrynth Unchained deck. Uh, Now you know how easy that Tenpai matchup is. Uh, I guess we haven't talked about these cards here. So Black Goat alongside the extra like extra furnishers. So this is another card against Tenpai. Like this card is ridiculously strong against Tenpai Dragons. You just flip this and just call like Chandra, and it's really really strong. Like they can't win the game if they don't like go through that. You can also just if you have this card set, you can call the Bident Dragon, like the level 7 synchro, and in order for them to OTK, they pretty much just have to go through that card. Otherwise they are going to exhaust a lot of resources. The other thing that makes Black Gold really strong is that if you open it alongside a furniture, you can just furniture for the Black Goat, and like you pretty much have like a stronger imperm against your opponent. Going second, this is also really strong. Like this just like freezing Appaloosa is one merit to this card. Another merit to this card is like it can win very specific matchups. Like for example, purely cannot win under this card, like in the graveyard. If you play against Flonderies, you can banish this before they summon Eaglin. Just call Eaglin, and that also is really really strong against them. Like this card is just very very strong in design. Like against the more rogue matchup, this card is really good. Against Tenpai Dragons, this is also really good. Against Snake Eyes, is kind of awkward because uh like there are some effects that you like they trigger from grave, for example, so you cannot stop like those. But like for example, just flipping this and calling Flamber's Dragon is really strong. Banishing this from the graveyard and just calling Snake Eye Ash or Oak is also really strong. uh Sadly, you cannot use the graveyard effect to stop Promethean Fire Princess because it says except from the graveyard for some reason. Um, but yeah, I cited this in almost every game 2 and 3, and it worked. Like it's just that strong. But yeah, that's the list. Pretty lengthy deck profile. I hope you found this video informative to your liking and understanding. Keep practicing and keep dueling.